Okay, then.
What's for dinner?
Let's see what's for dinner today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupakaramayam Darati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna, it's June 8th, 2020. And this is a Monday evening program. At the last evening program 2 days ago, we started reading philosophical discussions. And this is Prabhupada commenting on the philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz, German. He also wrote in French, and he's known as philosopher. He's known as the inventor of calculus, along with Isaac Newton, so mathematician. And so just to briefly kind of like summarize the context here. So Prabhupada, decades ago, they came out with the book Dialectic Spiritualism. I think Prabhupada, he chose that title, and that's like Prabhupada commenting on a few dozen Western philosophers, with his disciples sort of representing the Western philosophers. Then in more recent years, they came out with Beyond Illusion and Doubt and Quest for Enlightenment, maybe smaller volumes that also have some edited versions of these transcripts of Prabhupada's comments on the Western philosophers. And so here in this 7-volume collected teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the last volume and a half or so, it's the raw transcripts without any editing, the raw transcripts. And this is towards the end of the 6th volume. We got maybe about several philosophers, and Shyamasundar Das is speaking with Prabhupada and representing those philosophers. Most all of the 7th volume of the 7-volume set is Hayagriva, representing the philosophers. And Prabhupada comments on maybe about 50 Western philosophers. So these are the raw transcripts without any editing. And the first one is Leibniz. I commented on Saturday well, first of all, in reading the 2nd volume of Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, it's very apparent that how important this project was and is for Srila Prabhupada. This commentary on Western philosophers, he deliberately cleared a lot of time for this project. So it's very important for him. The first one listed is this Leibniz, who, again, I mentioned on Saturday, one thing Leibniz is well known for in philosophy is this principle of the monads. And so it's become a term we've used. We're not the body, we're that irreducible quanta of consciousness that animates the body. Even sometimes we'll mention that, and then when we have pearls at the end, people will use that as a pearl. So I did not coin that phrase, and I'm not exactly sure where I first heard it. Maybe it was from the first lectures I heard from Stambadas back in the early 80s in State College, Pennsylvania. He had a very intellectual approach to preaching. In the early manuscripts of Sadhaputta and other devotee scientists, I think they use that term. But okay, so actually where we see this term used outside of devotee intellectuals is when you get the English translations of Leibniz, that this principle of the monads, because Leibniz's idea, first of all, the first point that Shyamasundar makes representing Leibniz is Leibniz's idea is like, well, the whole point of creation is to understand the purpose of God and follow it. So Prabhupada said, oh, he's a first-class philosopher. Okay, he's a first-class philosopher. And then there gets to be intricate discussion. We were discussing on Saturday. I'm here with Ramachandra and Keith Prabhu. Here online is Narayan and Malini. And we're discussing, so Prabhupada gets into the nuances of Leibniz's conception of absolute truth, relative truth. And you can see like Leibniz sort of has the idea, but he doesn't quite have like the Vedic parampara illumination to make clear distinctions. Okay, so I thought we'll continue on this part. So Shyamasundar says, he says that everything goes by steps in nature and not by leaps. In other words, there is a law of continuity, like there are no gaps in nature. Everything is gradual. There is a gradual differentiation. Prabhupada comments, and it's like a full page comment. No, there are two ways, gradual and immediate. Also, of course, in one sense, then there's a break in the tape. Little force, it goes quickly. The ball has no power. So wonderful things are happening in the material nature due to the will of the Supreme. Everything happening is the same process. It is undergoing the process. But the method, pushed by God, it takes automatically, just like he created this material nature. It is in the beginning non-manifest, and gradually it grows three qualities, and by the interaction of qualities, so many things come out. The sky comes, and as soon as the sky comes out, there is sound. Sound comes. As soon as sound has come out, the ear comes. The controller of the ear comes. So many things. One after another, one after another, one after another. So the pushing is so perfect that all other things come automatically in perfect order. But foolish people, they are thinking that things are coming automatically out of it without any background. They don't think there is God. They think that nature, there was a chunk and the creation was there, and wherefrom the chunk came. That is imperfect observation. Perfect knowledge is you take Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Mayadhyakshena Prakriti, under my superintendence, and that is our practical experience. When I manufacture this table, the raw materials, matter is there, but it has not automatically become table. I have made it by instrument, by my brain. Similarly, this cosmic manifestation has not come out automatically. It is the brain of Krishna. Therefore, he is the creator. That is nature. Nature is instrumental, just like the potter. His wheel is going around and the clay is making a pot. But the original cause is the potter. He has given force to the wheel. After the wheel is running, then so many pots are coming out. So nature, foolish people are seeing that the wheel is moving. They do not see that behind the movement of the wheel, there is a potter who has given force. So there is no question of nature. everything is God, Krishna. This is imperfect vision that the wheel is moving without any direction. So this kind of knowledge is imperfect. Real knowledge is, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, you take it from Bhagavad Gita that Maya Dakshina Prakriti. Under my direction, the material energy is working. So the wonderful working of the material nature is not perfect observation. Behind the wonderful work of the material nature, there is Krishna, God. So Prabhupada's pretty much resonating with Leibniz's idea there. Things go step by step, and Prabhupada gives a summary description of the process, like this, the Sankhya philosophy. Things go from subtle to gross, ether sound, and then the deity controlling sound, and then air, and touch, and then the deity controlling that, and then the sense of skin, tactile sense. So it's kind of like, so often following in Prabhupada's line, we'll say things like, okay, we can see in this simple watch or in this simple water bottle, we know that there's a brain behind it, we know there's intelligence, the wind didn't just blow. So it makes sense that, behind the veins of the leaf, behind the human brain, which is trillions of times more higher level organization than this, must be a higher brain. So Prabhupada makes the point that because people in general, he's giving an example, like they can see the pot, but they don't see the potter. They can see the potter's wheel, but we know there's a potter behind it. So it's kind of like the reason why, a reason why it's not just like easily understood. Well, of course there's this greater intelligence behind the rotation of the planets, is because in nature, compared to the watch or the water bottle or the bus system of New York or something, that in nature things are so perfectly smoothly done. And so it's kind of like, because like with a watch, like, well, okay, it needs a battery every once in a while, it's subject to defect, it breaks. But in nature, everything's so smooth that we don't consider the person behind it, because it's so perfectly smooth. I hear Prabhupada making that point, just like think, okay, like, so, all right, so I want to drink a water, I get the water bottle, and I do this, and I drink, and that's what I do. And okay, and it's okay. But I'm not. I'm a factor. But it's just so smooth compared to anything man makes. Prabhupada quotes Cowper. Cowper said, "Nature is made by God, and the city is made by man." And so, compared to anything man makes, things are so smooth. So it just seems like, I'm just doing this. But no, there's this very, very super sophisticated arrangement of demigods and modes of nature and prakriti and the facilitation of the super soul that allows the nerves and the veins and the muscles to move, and the synapses in the brain. And it's so much more sophisticated than this computer. But it's because it's so smooth, we just think, oh, it just happens. Because there's no, yes, yeah.
It's almost like we expect defect.
Yeah, like we expect defect, right.
And if there is no defect, then we don't compute things.
Right. Yeah. Krishna's Maya is so perfect. Yes, Narayan.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt your reflection.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm with you.
Well, in regards with what Malini just shared, like what I was just thinking is like, I don't experience nature as smooth. There seem to be so many defects in nature. Like there's a lot of birth defects in organisms and through reproduction. There's natural disasters. There's like uneven distribution of resources. There's invasive species and plants that take over entire ecosystems. There's extinctions of, and we can call that perfect, but it's like, I don't know if it's smooth, like it sorts itself out, but it's like there are defects.
Yeah, it's all about disturbances. It's like the material nature is, it's inherently dull compared to spiritual nature. It's in a sense it's all perfect and it's all defective. Material nature, whether it's the leaf or the human brain or the rotation of planets, it is all designed for decay and destruction. It is all designed for decay and destruction.
What I think I'm looking at is, what you were saying about the bottle, about the computer, about the car, all the man-made things. Then we naturally think like, yes, of course it's man-made, but when it comes to all those nature and the rotation of the planet and the sun, the sun setting and the sun rising and the cloud and the rain and the cycle of the season, the cycle of, I see the defects there, but it seems that our brain is like, can compute with the defect of the man-made thing. So we expect defect and we feel comfortable with that. But things that we cannot explain in, like that. That's what I was meaning. And because in nature, things, even so they are defectuous, I can see that they are defectuous. There is so much defect and problems and still they seem so seamless and so random, and so that our way to approach them seems to be different than the things that we can expect defect about, the man-made things.
Yeah. Dr. Keith, you...
we're seeing it through the perception of our own. We're seeing it through the filter of our own perception. That's why we see the defects in it. I was thinking about this from the other class that he was saying about snow being red,
right,
and how, and then also he's saying about how water can be frozen. How he's saying, well, the real nature of water is to be wet, and how when it's frozen, it's not really such a...
It's artificial. Yeah,
it's artificial. And so I was considering that what he meant by it is that, and what the meaning of relative truth is. We're seeing it as, and also these, like you were saying earlier on, the scientists and all that stuff, we're conditioned to see everything here in relative to material nature, relative truth. It is relative to material nature. But what Prabhupada is saying about the water being the energy of Krishna is that it's a pure manifestation of the material nature. It's just simply water, it's simply the taste. And that's, as an energy of Krishna, that means that it's relative to him. Like he was saying, it's, the water, water is being an energy of Krishna. It's an absolute truth within the material realm, though it is still non-permanent. Within the material realm, it's an absolute. And then when we make that connection as being an energy of Krishna, then that relative truth becomes connected to him. You get what I mean?
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
Does it make sense?
I'm processing.
Like not being like a relative truth being relative to material nature, like I see the imperfections here. That means my perception is relative to my own opinion of it. But if I see everything relative to Krishna, then that's how
then we see the perfection in the plan of the absolute. Okay, thanks for that. Yes, it's right. So it seems like in a sense, material nature. It's inherently subject to the 6 changes, including decay and death, and so we can see that as defect. At the same time, Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamade Purnameva Vishishyate. It's a perfect and complete arrangement emanating from the absolute, and and it seems like within that context of everything in material nature decays, compared the material nature, as Krishna says, it's beautiful, splendid, powerful, wondrous creations, but it all springs from just a spark of my splendor. Yadyad vibhutimat sattvam shrimad urjitam evava tad eva gacha tvam mamatesham sasambhava. And so compared to the spiritual nature, the material nature is very dull. And okay, so within the context of the decay and the destruction of material nature, the nature of material nature, within that context, everything is unfolding or decomposing in a way that's far, far more precise than anything man-made. So we can see that, this isn't shallow stuff. Each paragraph is very full, and because Prabhupada's, he's commenting from the Vedic perspective on the greatest philosophical minds in Western history. So Shyamasundar says, he, meaning Leibniz, also believes that God is behind it, but he is trying to analyze. He says that there is no gaps or sudden changes, great changes in nature, that everything is gradual. Prabhupada says, yes, as soon as there is a process, there is a link of everything, one after another, one after another. That is nature's way. Just like in the creation, the first creation is mind. We have got it in the Bhagavad Gita. First creation is Mahatattva, the sum total of material energy. Then there is interaction of the 3 gunas, qualities, and then mind comes out, ego comes out, intelligence comes out. In this way, one after another. That is explained in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, how creation takes place. So the Vedas say, Sa-aikshata, the Supreme Lord, simply by glancing over. In Bhagavad Gita also it is said that, but just like we impregnate a woman by sex behavior, but here it is said that he simply glanced over the material nature, total material energy, and the creation begins. Sa-aikshata. So because he is omnipotent, he can impregnate the material nature not by sex behavior, but simply by glancing, and the material nature immediately becomes agitated, and things begin to happen. So the original cause is glancing over material nature by God. But we materialists, we cannot think how by simply glancing the material nature is set into motion. That is material conception. Shyamasundar, Leibniz says that space and time are mere appearances, but the ultimate or genuine reality is different. Prabhupada, that is Krishna, Sarva Karana Karanam, cause of all causes. Shyamasundar, he calls these ultimate entities monads. Monad means unity or oneness. He says that the ultimate stuff out of which even the atoms are made are called monads, small particles. So this is what we'll sometimes see when they translate this into English. It's irreducible quanta of consciousness. And so we can see Leibniz, he's not propagating the idea that the epiphenomena idea that Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, and he describes it and defeats it. But the idea that when matter combines, then consciousness arises. Leibniz is saying, no, the essence of everything is irreducible, and it cannot be reduced to atoms or things like that. And so, Leibniz is about maybe a little bit after Descartes. He's a contemporary with Isaac Newton. And so these early modernist philosophers, they endeavored to employ these new in terms of in the West after the Middle Ages, these new tools of empiricism and positivism. They endeavored to employ these tools of analysis to establish God, to establish the existence of God. Of course, it became a slippery slope like that, but you can see he's like Newton, like Descartes, endeavoring to establish God in a way that that intellectual people can respect, because what was going on in the name of the church through the Middle Ages, intellectual people just kind of couldn't take it seriously. Okay, so Shyamasundar presents about monads. Okay, then Prabhupada says, and within those small particles there is Krishna. That small particle is not final. And Antarasta Paramanu, that is also superficial. Okay, Shyamasundar. He says that these monads are individual, conscious, alive, and active, and they range in quality from the lowest type or matter through the higher of types, such as soul, to the highest, which is God. Prabhupada. So whether within the atom there is soul or not. Shyamasundar, his theory is that even the atoms are made out of these monads. Prabhupada, what is a monad? So there's an open-ended question for you. What is a monad? Yeah, right. Because we can see, like Leibniz, he's a pious, he's a brilliant thinker, and so he's coming up. He has this idea of monads, but it's kind of like because he doesn't quite have the parampara connection, then his ideas, it's mud. I mean, it's quite brilliant what he's coming up with on his own kind of, and a lot of it's aligned with absolute truth, but it's also muddled. So Prabhupada's, what is a monad? And the answer, I think, is going to be not all that clear, and Prabhupada exposes that. Shyamasundar, it's difficult to understand, but a monad means a tiny particle of force, which is Prabhupada, and we say that is Krishna. Shyamasundar, he says that it has activity, consciousness, etc., but each monad is individual, and its inherent qualities are produced from that monad. Prabhupada, that monad, as we say, Krishna, as we understand from Brahma Samhita, that Krishna is within the atom also. Shyamasundar, he says that a monad is the force or activity which constitutes the essence of a substance. So Leibniz's idea is like he has this entity, the monad, this irreducible entity, and it's sort of like some integration of Atma and Dharma. It's like, because it's the essence and it's the substance, and it's also the essential quality of the substance. Prabhupada, but Krishna is the substance. Samam bonam, antarasta paramanu chayantarastam. He is within everything. That is his all-pervasive nature. Shyamasundar, then how are the individualities accounted for? Prabhupada, every individual soul is awarded a little portion of independence because every individual soul is part and parcel of God. So he has got the quality of independence in minute quantity. That is individuality. Shama Sundar. Just like, for instance, say, this particulate substance, he would say that there is a force or activity which constitutes the essence of this substance, and that is the monad of this substance. He is attributing it to everything, matter. Prabhupada. So we take the atom. Atom is the smallest, so we say, within the atom, the force is Krishna. He is simply suggesting there is some enforcing power. We are giving directly that that is Krishna. Shama Sundar. But he says that in that enforcing power, each atom is individual, separate, different. Prabhupada, yes, Krishna, by his omnipotency, can expand himself in innumerable forms. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Ananta, Rupam, Ananta, unlimited. As it is clearly said, Andantarastam, he is within the atom. Shama Sundar. Is he between each atom as an individual entity, different from each other entity? Prabhupada, yes. If Krishna is there, Krishna is individual. And atoms also, there are varieties of atoms. Sometimes they are combined together, 6 atoms, 5 atoms, 3 atoms. Shama Sundar, how is Krishna different? Prabhupada, Krishna is there in every atom. Shama Sundar, how is he individual in each one of the atoms? Prabhupada, why not he is individual? Krishna is individual. How is he not individual? Krishna is always individual. Shama Sundar, he is a person. Prabhupada, yes, Krishna is always person, supreme person, but he can expand innumerably. Shama Sundar, and Paramatma, is Paramatma a person? Prabhupada, yes, Paramatma is a person. Every expansion, just like we are also expansion, atomic expansion of Krishna. So we are persons. Every individual soul is a person, but we are expansion of Krishna. Paramatma is another expansion, Vishnu Tattva, Brahmadi Mortishu. That is another expansion, different kinds of expansions. So in hearing this, because the idea is like, okay, well, Krishna's in every atom, so there's no individuality. It's all Krishna. I'm thinking of like the name of Krishna, Vasudev, which, from what I understand, it's the same root as Vishnu and Vasudev. And it means, just like the first line of Bhagavatam, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So, all-pervading personality of Godhead, that's the meaning of Vasudeva, that's the meaning of Vishnu. So, and it's really inconceivable to the mundane mind. So, all-pervading, yet personal, yet individual. So the super soul sitting right next to me, and the super soul sitting in your heart, and the super soul in that blade of grass, like that, they're all the same. They're all Paramatma, and they're all distinct individuals simultaneously. So that because if you think of all pervading, we think, okay, well then there's no personality. But Vasudeva, Vishnu, all pervading personality of Godhead. Right, so like the super soul in my heart has a personal relationship with me, and in your heart it's the same super soul, but a different flavor of personal relationship.
Mm.
You want to comment, Malini?
I'm just thinking about what you're saying. It's a nice concept. I never thought about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there is a 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita where there's a distinction between the knower of the field and the knower of all the field.
Yeah.
So in that, it means almost like that there is an impersonal aspect to the Paramatma almost.
Mm-hmm.
He knows everything and he knows everyone. So he's a person, but at the same time, he looks like he's the same in everybody's. You know, he's in a blade of grass. He's in ants, and he's in the dog. He's in me. He's in you. but I never thought about the Paramatma being each of the of that form of the Lord, expansion of the Lord. They, of course, is having a relationship with each of us, and is constantly giving us guidance. So as such, giving us guidance and individual guidance, it needs to be different. It needs to be individual.
Personal, yeah.
It's personal, and also is guiding the wandering of all the living entities, and is a superseer and the permitter, and all that description from the Bhagavad Gita. Like if we boil it down, like is directing, is a permitter, is an overseer, and what he oversee, what he permit, and what he, is there in a very individual way.
Very, very.
Each soul, while at the same time it's the same expansion of Krishna in terms of qualitatively. Yeah.
We can see, because it seems like in this segment, Shama Sundar, he's kind of going out of trying to represent Leibniz.
Yeah.
Shama Sundar, he's just trying to grasp what we're kind of trying to grasp here.
Yeah.
He's trying to grasp, and this is like 1971, so he doesn't have the advantage of so many books and recordings from Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm.
So Shama Sundar is like trying to grasp it, and he's asking Prabhupada like that.
Yeah. And what I appreciate also, I wanted to say, like when Shama Sundar described the Leibniz. I don't know how to say it in English. I just started the French name, but I appreciate how Prabhupada validates his understanding. He validates his intelligence. Say, okay, well, yeah, he got it. Maybe he doesn't got it completely. Maybe he's missing some parts. But whatever he got from his own, empirical research and all that, and Prabhupada is really validating, and then he gives a more complete understanding. But he's really like, wow, yeah, he got something there. He has some direction, and in a sense, of course, if the soul is that Chitananda, then if people really honestly think very deeply, whatever knowledge they are going to receive is going to have some truth in it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, pretty much whenever something's popular, I mean, there's going to be always some grain of truth, and that's what makes it attractive. And then there could be some cheating, incompleteness, limitation, mistake around it. But the grain of truth is what makes it essentially attractive.
Yeah. And I appreciate how Prabhupada validates that.
Yeah, this philosopher has a lot of truth. Like he's got God in there and things like that. And, he's got spirit. Spirit is an irreducible substance. Material forms are relative truth, not absolute. So Prabhupada's appreciating Leibniz quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then Shama Sundar says, Jivatma is also a person? Prabhupada, yes. If not person, then why the difference? You may not agree with my opinion, but if we agree voluntarily, not that exactly what I think you think, but because you have accepted me as your guru, as superior, therefore we agree. You are individual. You may not agree. You are individual, and I am individual. Krishna is individual. That is stated. Nityo Nityanam. Plural number. There are many individual souls, but he is the supreme individual person. Shama Sundar, this idea of a monad means, and Prabhupada says, you call it by any name, but within the atom there is the force, that is Krishna. You call it monad or something else. Shama Sundar, he says the lowest type of monad is in matter, material forms, and then it proceeds up through higher monads, which are souls. Prabhupada, so we directly say, and there's some indistinct words in the text, Krishna, that is spiritual. Shama Sundar, he says that each monad has an inner or mental activity, a spiritual life. Prabhupada, that is explained in everything, that as soon as we say there is Krishna, so there is everything. Shyamasundar. So even between the atoms of matter, there is a spiritual life, spiritual force. Prabhupada, yes, that force means spiritual force. Shyamasundar. He says that all bodies are ultimate quantums of force, that the essential nature of all bodies is force. Prabhupada, yes, force is the spirit soul. Without the spirit soul, the body has no force. It is a dead body. Shyamasundar. But just as there is a dead body of a man lying there, still there is force going on in that body. There are worms coming out. Prabhupada. But that individual soul force is not perfect. As Krishna is within the atom, the body is a combination of so many atoms, so therefore the force for creating another living entity is there. Shyamasundar. So just the decomposing is a force, turning to gases, so there is force in every body. Prabhupada, yes, that individual soul's force is stopped. That we call dead body. But Krishna's force is still there because it is combination of atoms. So the soul leaves, but the super soul is still there in all the atoms. Shyamasundar. He says, that which is manifested to our senses, which occupies space and exists in time, is only an effect of the basic nature, which is transcendental to the physical nature. The physical nature is just an effect of a higher nature. Prabhupada, physical nature is a byproduct. Just like I explained that you create your body, the physical nature is subservient to the soul. Therefore, according to my desire, I get a body. I create a body. Shyamasundar, his idea is that these monads, they create bodies. Prabhupada, yes, that I say. So yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jajajante kalevaram. At the time of death, as you are thinking, your next body is created. Therefore, you create the body. Shyamasundar. But does the monad of us say a hydrogen molecule, does that also create its own body? Does it only accidentally become part of a water molecule? Or does it, Prabhupada, nothing is accidental. Shyamasundar. It also desires to become a water molecule. Does the atom of hydrogen desire to combine with hydrogen and become a water molecule? Prabhupada. The ultimate desire is of Krishna. Shyamasundar. But does each atom, even of matter? Prabhupada. If you take it that way, Krishna is within every atom. So Krishna wants to be it. Therefore, he is willing to let these two things become one. And there is some creation, and again another creation, and another creation. The ultimate brain is Krishna. Shyamasundar, does the hydrogen molecule have an independent desire? Prabhupada, no, but within the hydrogen atom, there is Krishna, therefore it is combining. Not this hydrogen atom as matter is combining, but because Krishna is within that hydrogen atom existing, he knows that by combination, this thing will come about, that will come out, that will come out. Shyamasundar. But the individual soul has a little independence to choose. Prabhupada has no independence. Prabhupada, the individual soul does not. In Bhagavad Gita it says that Anumanta, individual soul, wants to do something, and Krishna gives orders. Man proposes, and God disposes. Shyamasundar. So we have no free will? Prabhupada. No, without sanction of Krishna, we cannot do anything. Therefore, he is the ultimate cause. So we have free will, but ultimately the ultimate factor is the super soul. That's why we say, like, if someone has clear intention, a clear intention on the spiritual platform, nothing material can get in the way, but Krishna can get in the way. So ultimately, there's the super soul. Okay. Shyamasundar, but I thought you had been saying that we have a little independence. Prabhupada, that independence that Krishna wants me to do something, but I want to deny it. But unless Krishna sanctions, you cannot do that also. Shyamasundar, what I'm trying to get at is that if we desire something and we take a body because of that desire, can a hydrogen molecule desire to become part of water and be given that body? Does it have the independence to desire something and take a body accordingly? The hydrogen molecule, does it have a life? Prabhupada, so far as we get information, our knowledge is from the Vedic information, Antarashta Paramanu. Krishna is within, the Paramatma. It does not say the soul is within, the Paramatma. Shyama Sundar. It doesn't say that an individual soul is present within the atom. Prabhupada, no, Krishna is present. Shyama Sundar. So then this philosophy of Leibniz is not correct. Prabhupada, no. Shyama Sundar, because he says in matter there's also this kind of individuality. Prabhupada, that individual is Krishna. Krishna knows that so many atoms will be combined, then another thing will be formed. It is not the individual soul, but Krishna directly. Shyama Sundar, but when you come to the living entities, then the individual soul is also there. Prabhupada, yes, within the body, both of them. Krishna is also there, and the individual soul is also there. Shyama Sundar, he says that the definition of substance is a being capable of action. Substance means to be capable of action, and that existence means action. Prabhupada, substance is original, other things are categories. Relates to like the 10th canto is the summum bonum, that's the original, and the other cantos are categories that emanate from Krishna, from the summum bonum. Shyama Sundar, so being capable of action, is that a good definition of substance? Prabhupada, yes, substance means the original cause, so he is completely able to act. Shyama Sundar, he says to be is to be active. So Leibniz, we often talk about how there's be, do, have, and being and doing are separate. At the same time, they're non-different. So Shyama Sundar, representing Leibniz, says to be is to be active. So he gets this interrelationship between being and doing. Prabhupada, yes, to be means to be active. Without activity, what does it mean to be? So the nature of the soul is to act. Like our paradigm for conscious living is not be, just be. No, as soon as there's being, there's action. So that's Vedic, and Leibniz is getting that point. Shyama Sundar, he says that these monads change in their appearances because the inner desire impels it to pass from one phenomenal representation to another. Prabhupada, the monad does not change, but his mind has changed. But I do not know what this means, monads. He is complicated. He cannot express what is this monad. Shyama Sundar, monad is very vague. It means a small unit of oneness or unity, which is the substance behind everything else, even the atom. Prabhupada, that is Krishna. Krishna is fully independent. Shyama Sundar, he says, for instance, that a monad changes its appearance according to its desires. Prabhupada, that indication is for the soul, but Krishna is not that. Krishna is Kuta, means he does not change. Shyama Sundar, he says, just like this thing, holding up an object, it will change to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, depending on its desire, which impels it to change. He says that even behind some object, there is some ability to change. Prabhupada, that I have already said. Just like Krishna, first of all, he created the whole total cosmic energy, and then by his plan, by his devices, he divides into so many things, changes, parts and parts and parts. It can be taken in that way. The material changes are going on according to the will of God, or Krishna. Is that clear? Shyama Sundar, yes. He says that each monad is like all of the others. They are identical so that to know one is to know all, to know the whole world. Prabhupada, this individual monads can be taken as soul. Shyama Sundar, yes, and he sees soul even in matter. Prabhupada, yes, if Krishna is there, there is super soul. Shyama Sundar, so he would say that each particle of super soul, or each monad, is self-contained, that there is no gain or loss of force. Prabhupada, yes, eternal. Shyama Sundar, he says that even though these monads are always active, they do not contact each other, neither do they affect each other. For example, if a bat hit a ball In reality, the bat did not really affect the ball. Prabhupada, but some individual soul has taken the bat. He has hit it, not the bat has hit it. Shyamasundar, he says that the bat and the ball are independent. Prabhupada, how they are independent? I am holding the bat, I am hitting the ball. So how can the bat is independent? Shyamasundar, this is the function of the bat. Prabhupada, no. If I don't hit bat in my hand, the bat cannot hit the ball. How is the bat independent? Shyamasundar, let's take another example. Say a rock falls from a cliff into the water and makes the water move. He would say that the rock's falling and the water's moving, that the monad involved in the rock and the monad involved in the water did not really affect each other, that the water parted and the rock went through the water, but that this was the inherent nature of the water and the inherent nature of the rock, so that they did not really affect each other. Prabhupada, but one thing is that when rocks were thrown on the sea by Lord Ramachandra's will, they began to float. Therefore, the Supreme Will is the ultimate cause. Supreme Will wants that the rock may go down in the water, then it goes. If he does not want, then the rock floats. Therefore, rock is not independent. The Supreme Will of God is independent. There are so many other examples. The same example as I cited the other day, that the cow eats the dry grass and it gives so nutritious, full of vitamins, milk. But the same dry grass, if a woman eats it, she will die. Therefore, the plan of the Supreme that the cow, by eating dry grass, she can deliver nicely. It is not on the dry grass she is producing milk. It is the will of God that is producing it. Similarly, the stone falling, because the will of God is there. Therefore, you stone, go down in the water. But when God wills that it floats, it will float. So that, in that case, the monad theory did not act. Shyamasundar, he is saying that there's no such thing as cause and effect. Prabhupada, no, that is nonsense. The supreme cause is God. Sarva karana karana. Shyamasundar, another example, he says that the body has no causal influence on the soul. Neither does the soul affect or interact with the body. Prabhupada, that is another nonsense. The soul desires something, and to fulfill that desire, he gets a certain type of body. Therefore, soul is the cause of manufacturing a type of body. Should I go on for a bit? Any comments at this time?
Yeah, so he's
No.
Go ahead.
No, I skip a little bit. My daughter called me on the phone, but when I skip, Prabhupada was speaking about Paramatma in every atom, and it's something I'm familiar to. But as you were speaking, I was thinking, what's the purpose of that? Like, I understand the purpose of the Paramatma within the heart next to the soul, to accompany the soul, like it's like such great benevolence of the Lord to do that, to accompany us, to be next to us, to be with us, and then to, witness and like guide and all that. But what's the purpose, of Paramatma being in every atom of the even if inert matter, where there is no soul?
Well, this is interesting, interesting discussion. I think there are some places, in fact, I'm sure of it, where Prabhupada says some things that can seem to indicate that there is a jivatma within the atom. But kind of like it's so unconscious that like it's considered to be dead matter. That's one point that it's not common in Prabhupada's teachings, but we can find some conversations where Prabhupada seems to go there.
Because here he was saying the opposite.
Saying the opposite.
Because he was saying like, Shyamasundar saying that philosophers like see life everywhere, but different degrees of life. And Prabhupada said, no, there is only Paramatma.
Yeah. Right.
So you're saying like sometimes Prabhupada say like even in an atom, there is a soul, but the soul is so undeveloped and so covered over that it's almost dead, like matter.
Yeah, it's like inert. Yeah, at the same time, right. There are passages in Prabhupada's conversations where and letters he seems to indicate that. But then I think in essence of what Prabhupada's saying here is that, we need to get out of the box. Like there's life everywhere. And so, the Paramatma is the supreme facilitator, of course, serving under Vishnu, under Krishna, etc., etc. But within the material universe, Paramatma is supreme facilitator. And so to facilitate material energy, even if there is no soul in the material atoms, to facilitate material energy, if he chooses to do it by incarnating in each atom, then that's his pastime. That's his pastime, and that's how he chooses to do it.
Hmm.
And that's why it seems like, it's like there's different layers of discussion, because we can say the body's dead, there's no life. Well, there's no life. There's no life in the chair, no life in the rock. Of course, Prabhupada makes it clear. In some rocks, there are some mountains that do have life. There's crystals and things like that. But actually,
There's mountains that can fly.
Mountains that can fly, exactly. And so, but like, even if we look at the chair, okay, with the trillions and trillions of atoms in the chair, each one there's a super soul. There's so much life in that chair. And it's okay, so it's like a different conception, because super souls in our heart talking to us. All right, so maybe that's not true within the Paramatma in the atom, assuming the atom has no Jivatma, but the super soul's functions are vast, and we maybe just have a tiny glimpse of what are the super soul's functions within material energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of like when we sit on inert matter on a chair, we are sitting on Krishna. That's an interesting thought.
We're sitting on billions of Krishnas.
Yeah. But even like sometimes we say when the soul leaves the body,
Yeah.
then it's dead matter like the chair, but it's not true. Like, there is so many entities in the body.
Yeah.
The entities, bacteria and fungus and so many living entities and so many souls. So there are so many souls in that one body. It's kind of almost a whole universe on its own, like or planetary system on its own, on a microscopic level, because there is millions of living entities in that one body. But there is a soul that's the main soul, I guess, that make all the other soul die when it dies, because everything fall apart. Like, if the soul of the earth will die, like everybody else will die on it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, the other souls are kind of coalesce around the main soul. But yeah, so because like we speak in just kind of like the most fundamental terms. The soul leaves the body, so then there's no more life, because there's truth to that. It's somewhat superficial, but it helps to illustrate the point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then if we look more deeply into it, and if we look more deeply into it, well, there's so many souls and so many super souls in the body. There's so much life. There's so much life.
So much life in the body, yeah. So much soul and super soul.
Right. And so just to basically get across fundamental point, we say, so the chair is inanimate. The chair has no life. Right. At the same time, well, apart from the possibility of Jivatmas, there's billions of Paramatmas. What could be more than that? But then that's like a more complex understanding.
Yeah, it's meeting meeting us where we're at. We don't have that realization to see that Paramatma is in them, so he refers to everything as material nature. Yeah. But also I was noticing something he said, saying about how the soul can act on the body.
Yeah.
And he says no, that Prabhupada said that's wrong. The soul does act on the body, but in other part of the philosophy, it says that we're not the controller. I'm not the I'm not acting on the body.
Right.
So that's somewhat of a contradiction as far as I can
seems
see.
like a contradiction. Yeah, it seems like, again, it seems like there's different interrelated perspectives, and we can emphasize different perspectives at different times. Because Bhakrite Kriyamanini Gune Sarva Shakar Karmana Hankara Vimuda Kartami Timanjite. Under illusion, we think we're I think I picked this up, but really, no, it was the modes of nature and the super soul facilitating, and but I'm the doer, so that's illusion. So in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I think there's a sense in which we are the doer, and then the illusion is we think we're the ultimate or only doer. In the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 13 and 14, Krishna describes 5 factors as the causes of all action, and the soul is one of those factors. In fact, even the way Prabhupada translates it, the soul is called the doer. And then in other places, it makes it clear we're not the doer. Because then there's also the modes of nature. There's the senses. There's the quality of the endeavor. There's the field, etc. And then there's the soul, and then ultimately the super soul. So, and to the extent that the soul is in the lower modes of nature, lower species, or even humans and lower consciousness, then practically there's no free will. Then we're just pulled and pushed by, so we're not the ultimate doer. And there's 5 factors, and they're all involved in doing. An example we use sometimes is like if there's this mallet and bell toy, mallet and bell game at a carnival. Okay, it gets to the complications of who's the doer here. And so at the carnival, right, there's this big hammer, and you bang it on the thing on the ground, and then the ball goes up and rings the bell if you're strong enough. So let's say that like a 4 or 5 year old boy says, Daddy, I want to play that. Okay, so Dad said, let's do it. So yeah, you do it. So Dad pays the money to the guy running the game. And now the boy, he can't even pick up the mallet. He can't even pick up the mallet. But then okay, the dad's behind him. Come on, you can do it. Come on, let's go. Come on. And the bell rings. So we can say, who rang the bell? Who did it?
The boy.
Okay, so Malini says the boy. And there's definitely truth there. Because if the boy didn't have the intention, if the boy did not have the desire, the bell would not ring, right? At the same time, I say, how can you say the boy did it? He's not even strong enough to lift the hammer, what to speak of swinging. So you can say, well, really, it was the father. Or you can say, really, it was the contraption, the 3 modes of nature. It was the contraption. You can say it was the owner of the carnival. And there's truth to all of it. That's why we don't want to just go, well, it's complicated when we speak out to do it. But there are nuances and subtleties and complexities.
Yeah. Prabhupada, his intention is to establish that the relation to it all as the father and the son completing the task.
Yeah.
That's
his focus. That's his focus. Yeah.
So I'm why did he say that this guy was wrong then, because he said that basically the jiva has some control on the body, some influence on the body, and then Prabhupada says that is that what he said?
Well,
No, I can't remember what he said.
we need to look at it, because what Prabhupada, sometimes Prabhupada, he's picking up a particular emphasis that doesn't have the correct balance. Whereas if you take the statement itself, you can say, oh, sure, there's truth to that. And sometimes Prabhupada wants to emphasize where, yes, there's truth to that, and let's expand on it. And sometimes Prabhupada wants to emphasize, no, he's really missing a main point here.
Yeah, so he's focusing on the important points. He may have some aspect of the truth in his statement. Prabhupada's not focusing on that little unimportant one. He's focusing on the important truth that is relative to the conversation.
Yeah, and then in other places, Prabhupada will focus on the grains of truth and appreciate that. And because it was at a group session, I think maybe a week or two ago, and we made the point that, I think it relates to this, that sure, that biology affects consciousness, right? Like the body's really tired, and I can't even. The body affects consciousness, and consciousness. Biology affects consciousness, and consciousness affects biology. It goes both ways. And to the extent that we're self-realized and fully Krishna conscious, then biology no longer affects consciousness. So it goes both ways. Biology, consciousness, they interrelate. And to the extent that the soul is towards sattva gun and transcendence, then the consciousness, that's the illumination of the soul, is no longer affected by biology.
Yeah, so depending on what the level of the person's consciousness, then you'll talk about the effects of the biology on consciousness.
Yep.
So that's Prabhupada speaking that the average person.
Yep. So
he's focusing on that level of the lesson. Not speaking. Yeah, depends on who he's speaking to. Yeah, time will speak about from which way.
Time, circumstance, just like we know, the body and the mind is tired, only got 3 hours sleep, so naturally our conscience is affected, but not naturally, right? Because sometimes we'll say in the middle of a sentence, let's not let tiredness get in the way. Okay, sharp, focus, right? So to the extent that we're in sattva gun or transcendence, then we can choose not to be affected by biology. And then to the extent, again, that the soul in the animal or plant body, or humans, and when we're in lower modes, then the soul's practically like a robot. Just like whatever the biology's doing, the soul's just following. Okay, I appreciated our discussion. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you. Love the philosophy. I love Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.